segment. I can always do a part two if this isn't enough. So yeah, we can do yeah. So basically, for this segment, we're going to talk about malicious government structures, and we're going to focus predominantly on the main four that I can think of, which are totalitarianism, authoritarianism, fascism, theocracy, and then we're going to define what those are, compare them to each other. We're going to discuss 14 words and other hate symbols. We're going to discuss the effects on religion and government, and we're going to talk about like things like industrial genocide, and other things like not just genocide, but also like ethnic cleansing as a whole. So like not just murder, mass murder, but also deportations and things like that. So we're going to talk about these things. So the first thing we're going to get into is define. Oh yeah, I actually did look that up, and I totalitarianism. So basically, totalitarianism is a form of government that prohibits opposing political parties and ideologies while controlling all aspects of the public and private lives of the people. So, we're going to go ahead and copy this. A system of government that is centralized and dictatorial and requires complete subservience to the state. So we're going to put that here. Now we're going to look up authoritarianism. We're going to define this term. So now, mind you, this is going to be kind of a research kind of stream. So like you're going to be learning about this just as much as I am, because I literally do not know anything about authoritarianism and totalitarianism. So we're learning this together. We're going to do some research together. So authoritarianism, the enforcement or advocacy of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. So this is authoritarianism. Already I see, I guess, some similarities, but but also strict obedience, and then subservience. So like you are to serve the state versus you are to obey the state, which I guess is more like universal authoritarianism would be, because like if you're obeying the state, you could do that without necessarily being subservient to it. Whereas subservient just means like you are a slave to the state. Whatever the state wants you to do, you are going to do. Versus authoritarianism, you will follow a strict set of rules or you're off to the prisons, which there is kind of a difference there. You know what I mean? So like basically, if you're told you will be, like, I guess Ayn Rand is a nice example, I guess, even though you can take her with a grain of salt, because she's like some libertarian author. But basically, like, you're going to do this, and this is going to be your job, and you are going to be subservient, and if you don't do this, then versus authoritarianism, you cannot be anything different than what we allow you to be in terms of like who you are and your identity, and you are not allowed any basic freedoms in terms of like like right here, at the expense of personal freedom. So like like totalitarianism and authoritarianism, it looks like they can be almost intertwined. Like you can have a state that is a hybrid of these two, but it does look like there is a thin line between that separates the two of them. But once again, that'll be the purpose of this segment, is to look through is to try to understand that difference and figure out, okay, what exactly, how do I identify when I'm living in a totalitarian regime, or if I'm living in an authoritarian regime, or if I'm living under fascism, or if I'm living under theocracy, or some hybrid of these forms. And then of course the points we're going to go through. So the next one, obviously we're going to define fascism. An authoritarian and nationalistic. So fascism is by definition, I guess, mostly authoritarian, and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization. Um, so yeah, so but how can you be both fascist, both authoritarian and totalitarian? I don't know. Maybe we'll find that out. So we're gonna go ahead and define that here. And then now we're going to look up theocracy. A system of government in which priests rule in the name of God or a god. So this would be something like, I don't know, like the Vatican? I don't know. Like the Vatican, I don't know, Saudi Arabia. Like we don't really see a lot of theocracy with Christianity that much anymore, but we do see elements of it trying to come back. It seems like, mostly for, like like we see people trying to call for the intermingling of the United States and the church. So there is definitely the threat of that if we're not careful, of the state being, uh, treated as a tool for Sky Daddy or whatever. Um, but these days it seems to be mostly like dumb. Like I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but it seems these days it's mostly like in Islamic countries. But do not be do not like let yourself fall victim to the idea that that means Islam bad, because Christianity is not that much better. In fact, Christianity says a lot of the same shit in terms of genocide, like of LGBT, like of, it's so bloody in the Bible, and that the only reason we view Christianity as better than Islam is because there's not as many theocratic regimes that are pushing Christianity onto there. But sure enough, go back into history, there sure as fuck were a lot of them. European witch trials were not done by Muslim theocrats, they were done by Christians. Alright, so we just defined the structures, so we can go ahead and check this. So we defined the various structures. That's the first part of our little research stream. I love it. Progress. See, progress isn't bad. Vote progressive. Maybe I should have engaged with PV chat. Who knows? I wasn't streaming during PV chat. I'd literally just started. So, all right. So now we want to compare the various structures. So let's go ahead and look up what exactly is the difference. Totalitarian versus authoritarian are both forms of government control, but they have key differences. Totalitarianism seeks to control all aspects of public and private life, enforcing a single ideology. So it kind of makes me wonder if the Nazis were actually authoritarian or totalitarian, because they enforced the singular ideology of the superior Aryan race, and that anybody, all the deplorables, as well, not deplorables, all the degenerates, the transes, the gayses, the blackses, like all them, the Jews is I don't know how many S's are in the plural form of Jews because I don't know English. But like all these different groups like need to be wiped out because they're not part of the superior Aryan race. And so that's why, like, some of the first people to go in the Holocaust were LGBT people and disabled people. Socialists. All right, later Joker song. Be sure to sing some Joker songs out there for all the other joking birds or something. I don't know. I keep forgetting you're a cat, so you eat birds. So don't sing songs to the joking birds. Anyway, yes, the gay matriarchy salutes you. We will ensure that you have a place in the parliament of the gay matriarchy when the queen matriarch takes over and limits the freedom of the fascists. Invoking fascism to fight fascism, everybody. That's the queen matriarch. So, limited political freedom and concentrated power, but allows some personal freedoms. So you might have the ability to start a business. So Trump would fall into the authoritarianism thing. He wants complete unchecked concentrated power. He wants the state to be in charge of like personal, like, people's freedoms, like their reproductive health care. He wants to make sure trans people don't get to change their IDs, and like all these other things, and that we get listed as sex offenders, but we would still be allowed to, as long as we subvert our individuality to the state and deny who we are, so we don't get thrown in a cage. Then and trans women just accept our dicks and just identify with our dicks, and we're just men in society, and we get a job and we work 90 hours a week, and we go knock somebody up and we go have kids while she stays home and takes care of the kids, and we're out fucking busting our asses, fucking dying in. Yeah, as long as we do that, we still have the freedom to get a job and start a business and all that. But it's like, at what cost? Major limits to our freedoms that should not even be put in place. So that would be like a that would be so authoritarian would probably be more of an accurate description of Trump. Um, so now I want to compare next theocracy versus fascism. Let's go ahead and do that, because I think they're both very different forms of oppression of state ideology enforced against a population. I'm trying to find a good source. Let's see. What's the main difference between fascism and theocracy? Fascism is far right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power and suppression of opposition. Theocracy is a form of government in which deity is officially recognized as civil ruler, and religious officials govern in deity's name. So fascism is a political ideology that emerged in the early 20th century Europe, emphasizing aggressive nationalism, centralized autocratic leadership under a dictatorial ruler, and the suppression of political opposition, whereas theocracy is a system of government where priests rule in the name of God or a god, making no distinction between religious and political authority. So basically, essentially, if the Bible condemns you for being gay or trans, and it prescribes execution, there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing they can do. They're just adhere. There's what am I, a lowly priest, to do? But to question God? I have to kill you. I'm not a sociopath with with a hard on for the suffering of others. I'm just doing God's bidding. Um, so, in fascist regimes, the state's power is consolidated in the hands of a single leader or a ruling party, often utilizing militarism, propaganda, and mass mobilization to maintain control. And so, I guess, yeah. So on the other hand, in theocracies, leadership is typically vested in religious leaders who interpret divine laws as the basis for government, often merging religious law with state law. So fascism strictly controls all aspects of life, including the economy, education, and the media, with the aims of creating a homogenous society that aligns with the ruler's or party's ideology. Essentially, basically, whether or not there's a god and you are subservient to the god or the gods in your enforcement of the law, whether that means you know, your hands are tied, you just have to kill the gays, or, like, what have you, like, little Timmy, premarital sex is wrong, so I, as the priest, tell you don't tell anybody what I just did to you because you could get in trouble. Shit like that. Like, basically, it's all just another form of power and control, but the difference is fascism is more secular, can be secular, it seems, or so I'm like, yeah, so fascism, so right here it says fascism derives power from the state and a leader, so it's more secular, whereas theocracy is more based on a deity and religious laws. So it looks like we're not dealing with fascism, we're dealing with theocrats. So people are trying to literally turn us into a Christian theocratic nation. So, like, they wanna make the nuclear family the foundational recognized family or whatever of the United States. They want to outlaw being gay. They want to outlaw being trans. They want to ban abortion. They want to do all these things. This is not fascism. This is theocracy. And now that I'm seeing this for myself, I think we need to start calling it for what it is. Trump's not a fascist. Trump is a theocrat. And so are all the people trying to fight for his ideology. Holy shit. You see, that's the thing I like about these research streams. When we look shit up together, we all learn shit in real time, and it helps us better understand our opponents and where they're coming from so we can better tear down their arguments. Like, if Trump is not actually a fascist, but is actually a theocrat, like, he wants to. Wait. Is he. Now that I think about it, it's not Trump. Trump is no Trump. No, I got that wrong. Trump is definitely would be a fascist because he wants unchecked power and he wants it done through the state. But don't delude yourself into thinking that we are not at risk of things going from fascism to theocracy. Because if you look at a lot of the rhetoric on the far right, like they do want to merge the Ten Commandments with the Constitution. Like they do want to bring in like the like yeah, so yeah, I think yeah, let's just know what we're fighting against. So it looks like, yeah, no, I was right the first time. Trump is a fascist, but there's an awful lot of theocrats on his side too, so we need to watch out for that. So we just did that one. Now it's time to go over the 14 words, and we're going to discuss 1488. So the first thing, it's going to be really quick. I just want to, like, I already know what 1488 is, but if you guys don't know what 1488 is, then I'm going to Google it for you, and show you so that you're not just hearing it from me. You're actually, like, so 14 forward slash 88. Wait, not 98. So basically, so the 14 words, also abbreviated 14 or 1488, is a reference to two slogans originated by David Eden Lane, one of 9 founding members of the defunct white supremacist terrorist organization, The Order, and are accompanied by Lane's 88 precepts. The slogans have served as a rallying cry for militant white nationalists internationally. The primary slogan in the 14 words is, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." Now, you're probably wondering, is that 14 words? Yes, let's count. So, we must secure, which, by the way, these fuckers don't like trans people and they complain about pronouns, but Literally, we, just like in the Constitution. First fucking word on in the fucking slogan. How ironic. These guys are frauds. They fucking love their pronouns. They just don't like it when trans people ask them to respect theirs. We must secure the existence of our people and so we're at 10, future for white children. So that's 14 words right there. And then I guess the secondary slogan, I'm just now learning about this. Because the beauty of the white Aryan woman, ew, that's gross, must not perish from the earth. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my god. That's some Hitlerian shit right there. But then again, we're literally looking up 1488. So how am I surprised? The two slogans were coined prior to Lane being sentenced to 190 years in federal prison. God damn, 190 years? Just give him life. What the fuck? For planning and abetting the assassination of the Jewish talk show host Alan Berg, who was murdered by another member of the group in June 1984. They were popularized heavily after Lane's imprisonment. The slogans were publicized through print company 14 Word Press, founded in St. Mary's, Idaho, in 1995 by Lane's wife, Kaja, to disseminate her husband's writings, along with Ron McVan, who later moved his operation to Butte, Montana after Montana, whatever. I guess it's okay to call it Montana. After a falling out with Kaja. So yeah, so this is another understanding of it. So it's also in like a numerical coding right here. So so the 14 part is in reference to the thing about securing a future for white children or whatever. The 88 is numerical coding extensively throughout their blah blah blah. Essentially, I guess the letter H is the eighth letter of the alphabet. So like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So that's 8 right there. Um, so when you have 8, 8, that's H, H, which of course I don't want to say that. And if I already did, well, um, but either way, like, I just, like, if you see somebody saying 1488, or whatever, they're definitely a Nazi or something like that. So definitely watch out for that. Another thing I want to get into, and this is my favorite topic. This gets into a lot of the other like social issues I care about, which is criminal justice. So another hate symbol that a lot of white nationalists like to use is the 1350 argument, which is I think it was like despite being like 13% of the population, blacks commit over 50% of the crime or something like that. And there is actually a good reason. Like if this is true, like I'm not gonna go out of my way to try to find the statistics that it's based on. But if it is true, there is actually an explanation that these white nationalists don't want to address because it requires them to look inside and think, are we the problem? And basically, essentially, what it is you have a group of people that are collectively being victimized by a malicious government structure, such as a totalitarian, authoritarian, fascist, or theocratic regime, or some variation of two or more of these. Um, and so, in order to avoid being persecuted, you engage in what's known as communal defense, right? So, communal defense is basically when you gear together, and you might be armed. So this is where you get things like gangs, as we call them, and like the at the time, like the Black Panthers, where they're like, listen, we're gonna collectively defend ourselves, and if you come after us, like, we're just understand we're not an easy target for you. It's basically a method of trying to preserve yourself so that you're not like unfairly targeted by the state. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because, as we all see, it just causes the state to become even more aggressive and crack down even more violently and cause more smears. Like, for example, like they always say some racist shit about gangs, like, oh, they're just like, like selling drugs and shit. And it's like, well, if they can't get a fucking job because they're always in and out of your criminal justice system, well, they got to pay their bills. They got to feed their fucking kids. So what are they going to do? They're going to do drugs. They're going to not do drugs. They're going to sell drugs. They're going to maybe, like, especially if they're a woman, they're going to engage in sex work. It is a sociological problem that can be fixed with good policy. The problem is we don't live in a world where that is actually the acknowledged solution. We just want to spew dog whistle fucking hate symbols like this shit. So the so and also the other thing is weed is a really good example. White people, I say this a lot on this stream, but white people and black people smoke weed at a very similar rate, and yet black people are arrested for it more. Non-violent, mind you. Like, you could be driving in the car and the cop could be like, oh, you're like it's there's so many reasons for why, like, if it is true, which I'm pretty sure it's probably inflated for the sake of white nationalist talking points, maybe it's somewhere between 30 and 40, but it definitely ain't no fucking 50. Like, there are definitely so many explanations for why, black people might be more prone to crime, and it's not genetics, which is another big talking point from a lot of far right nationalists. Like, they refuse to acknowledge that a lot of the violence in the black community that they're so scared of is caused by their policies, their racist policies of zoning laws, like redlining and shit like that, and the lack of generational wealth that a lot of, like, I don't have any generational wealth. I'm definitely not privileged in that regard. I was able to save a comfortable nest egg so that I'm not on the edge of my seat waiting for my next paycheck to pay my rent. God forbid, if I'm short on money, I'll just like borrow against my funds. But it's like, a lot of people of color do not have that. And so they definitely do not like have the financial the financial nest egg to be able to defend themselves in situations like this. So it leads to a lot of issues that the black community faces that they just can't get themselves out of. And the solution to this problem is to not spew racist hate symbols about them and to try to limit their rights. The solution is to actually try to promote a fairer and more equitable system. You can, in the short term, you can do things like unionizing your workplace. You can do things like participating in your local Black Lives Matter rally, or engaging in a little local electoral politics, maybe state and federal. Like, these are that promote a fairer and equitable society for people of color. But in the long term, I really do think at the end of the day, it has to be that the system just needs to go. The existence of one hierarchy justifies the existence of other hierarchies, and it is for that reason that we need to capitalism. It's capitalism, people. It all comes back down to capitalism. Okay. So we discussed 14 words and other hate symbols. So we're going to go ahead and put the X there. Now I want to discuss religion and government. Let's go ahead and look that up. See what we got here. Oh, this is going to be a long segment. I thought it was going to be like a hour long or something. Some juicy content we got for this one. So let's see. Religion in government. Okay, So, a state religion, also called official religion, is a religion or creed officially endorsed by a sovereign state. A state with an official religion, also known as confessional state, while not a secular state, is not necessarily a theocracy. State religions are official or government sanctioned establishments of a religion, but the state does not need to be under the control of the clergy, as in a theocracy, nor is the state sanctioned religion necessary. Oh, you see? We learn even more. Another position I just. Okay, so, God, I need to do more of these research streams. Holy shit. So earlier today I said that our government was surrounded by well, the far right was filled with like theocrats, right? And but to my knowledge, I don't think any of them want priests to run the country. They just want the state to acknowledge Christianity officially as the religion of the nation, and they want to move fuck. I hate that I can't fucking. But it's like if you don't need to, but it's like, okay, but I don't think they're like that far right. I mean, if we're not careful, they definitely could end up being that way. Um, but apparently they can be more secular too, in the sense that you have the official religion recognized, but it's not run by a clergy, which I guess is the difference between like a state religion and a pure theocracy. See, I really need to do more of these streams. I fucking love this. This is nice. This is some good content here. And it's also educational too. We're learning something together as a community. Speaking of community, my Discord is linked in the stream. So if you want to check out my Discord, feel free to go there. We can have a lot of nice discussions there. Right now it's a ghost town. There's like nobody in there, but you can be the first person. You can be the first person. More people can join. The more my community grows, and we can have some really stimulating conversations about affairs. Like international affairs and socialism, which is the center of my channel. It's what we discuss mostly, like socialism and trans issues and that and all that. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to go on to my Discord. I think it'll be a nice community. And everybody is mandated to be nice, so don't worry if anybody's not nice, they'll be kicked. All right. Official religions have been known throughout human history in almost all types of cultures, reaching into the ancient Near East and prehistory. The relation of religious cult and the state was discussed by ancient Latin scholar Marcus Terentius Varro under the term Theologia Civilis. Not syphilis. Get your mind out of the gutter. The first state-sponsored Christian denomination was the Armenian Apostolic Church, established in 301 CE. In Christianity, as the term church is typically applied to a place of worship for Christians or organizations incorporating such ones, the term state church is associated with Christianity as sanctioned by the government. Historically, the state church of the Roman Empire. In the last centuries of the empire's existence, and is sometimes used to denote a specific modern national branch of Christianity. Closely related to the state churches are I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, and you can't fucking make me. Which are similar to, but carry a more minor connotation. In the Middle East, the majority of states with a predominantly Muslim population has Islam as their official religion, though the degree of religious restrictions on citizens' everyday lives varies by country. So, which one is a theocratic regime and which one simply has a state religion? Okay, so rulers of Saudi Arabia use religious power, while Iran's secular presidents. Okay, so secular. So Iran probably has more of a state religion than a theocracy. They're supposed to follow the decisions of religious authorities since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, I could be completely wrong. Once again, this is a research stream. Something might come up that completely bunks this point out of the water. So basically, if I'm understanding this correctly, Saudi Arabia would be the equivalent of a theocracy where they actually have someone claiming to be, as delusional as it sounds, a direct representation of Allah. And if you don't bow down and suck Allah's dick or something, then you will be executed. I think it's something along that lines. Whereas Iran may take advice from a clergy, but is overall a secular state. Turkey, which also has a Muslim majority population, became a secular country after Ataturk's reforms. Although, unlike the Russian Revolution of the same time period, it did not result in the adoption of state atheism. Yeah, no, state atheism. That's cute. The degree to which an official national religion is imposed upon citizens by the state in contemporary society varies considerably, from high as in Saudi Arabia and Iran. Wait, so Iran is? Wait. Maybe. Okay. The degree to which an official national religion is opposed, okay, varies considerably, from high as in Saudi Arabia and Iran to none at all as in Greenland, Denmark, England, Iceland, and Greece. In Europe, the state religion might be called in English the established church. So So Westminster Abbey is responsible directly to the British monarch. The Church of England is the established church in England. So basically, in England they do have an official religion, and it's just thankfully the king has been put on a fucking leash so he can't exercise unchecked power and silencing people who do not believe in his religion. But but it still does not change the fact that they still do have an established religion that is recognized, and that can lead to a lot of inequalities for their non-Christian citizens. Like they're Muslims, they're Buddhists, they're like I love how everybody always tries to Christianity, Catholicism, non-denomination. Y'all are just Christians. Come on. So yeah. All right. Now I want to talk about the harsher topic, or do I just want to skip this one altogether? No, we need to know about history. History is not fun, guys. So the last thing I want to do before I cut the segment and go to another break is genocide, industrialized genocide. So we're going to look at the Holocaust. More specifically, what did I want to look up in regards to the Holocaust? I got it. I have an idea. How maybe we can find a timeline video we can watch together. Weimar to Nazi Germany timeline. I think I might try to see if I can find because what I think. Okay, so I'm actually going to add that as another point. I'm going to try to see if, because I want you guys to understand. We all listen to Hitler's speech and we're just like, nah, of course that was a crazy fucker. But I'm gonna see if I can actually find a Hitler speech translated to English, because while he does say a lot of crazy, radical, lunatic shit, and so does Trump, um, I think there was a lot of really popular rhetoric that the Nazi Party spewed that really gained traction among the German populace, which is why it was a lot easier for them to capture their population. So I do think we should probably suffer through an English translation of one of Hitler's speeches in order to try to, like, maybe afterwards I can try to compare that to like a Trump speech, and then we can try to draw like some comparisons. Like, I want to go full on word to word analysis on this shit. Like, we really need to go into this. So like I really feel like if you're not walking away from this thinking, hey, maybe fascism, maybe you know, maybe our government is taking a really dark turn. Like, if you're not thinking that by the end of this segment, then I failed. So we need to have this discussion. So first we're gonna do 10-minute history, the Weimar Republic in Nazi Germany, short documentary. So let's see what they have to say.
1918, the First World War is finally over. As punishment for losing, Germany's two wartime allies, the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, were carved up shortly afterwards. The pressures of defeat plunged Germany into chaos, and as a result, the Kaiser abdicated. Revolution and counter-revolution were the order of the day, and in the small town of Weimar, Berlin was too dangerous, the Weimar Republic was declared. The next year, the Allies signed the Treaty of Versailles, which dictated the terms of Allied victory. This territory was lost, and the Rhineland was occupied by the Allies. Germany further had to reduce its military massively, pay war reparations, and also had to accept almost full responsibility for the war's outbreak.
So right here, I wanna point out, like, the war reparations and the economic turmoil that was going on in the country. Hitler, I like, if like, once again, if I can find an English translation of one of Hitler's speeches, I guarantee you, like, there will be some sound bites in there where he speaks to the economic struggles of the German population, and it is unfortunately that populist rhetoric that causes a lot of people to fall down some really dark rabbit holes, because while it is based to want to try to bring people up and out of poverty and try to actually help them with their lives, some really bad people could be cynically invoking that rhetoric in order to steer the country in a really dark direction. So Hitler, I'm pretty sure Hitler, you know, we're probably going to find out in this. Like, we're going to see.
This new Weimar Republic was one of the most democratic nations in the world at that point. Suffrage was granted to everyone over the age of 20, including women. The German people could vote on two aspects of the national government. Every 7 years, they voted on a president who presided over the German parliament, the Reichstag. Every 4 years, people would vote for political parties in national elections for the Reichstag via a system known as proportional representation, whereby the percentage of votes nationally dictated the percentage of seats in the Reichstag. The president could call elections whenever he felt, and also had the important job of appointing the chancellor, who ran the government and could propose laws. These laws had to be passed by a majority vote in the Reichstag, and since no party ever got 50% of the seats, that meant that parties would have to cooperate. No, democracy did not guarantee harmony, and there was numerous attempts at revolution, such as the quickly aborted Socialist Republic of Bavaria and the 1920 revolution led by Dr. Wolfgang Kapp. Kapp seized Berlin, and the German army refused to attack him because there was a strong belief that Germany had only lost the war due to political betrayal. Kapp's revolution was only ended.
So basically, essentially, the political betrayal. I don't know if this was one of the main points spewed by Hitler, but we'll find that out. But essentially, you have that victimization rhetoric, which is how a lot of fascists try to get their ideology out there. There has to be a victim narrative. There has to be, like, for example, in the country, the United States today, our victim narrative is where we have all these illegals, as these dipshits on the right say, and they're flooding into our border, and they're replacing our white population, and white people are not reproducing, and like you got that and like trying to victimize Mexico. We're gonna build a wall, and we're gonna make Mexico pay for it. Come on, you're gonna make Mexico pay for that. Good luck, bro. But yeah, and all it took was for there to be a nation in crisis. Now, we're not quite that nation in crisis just yet, but they're trying to manufacture that nation in crisis narrative by saying trans people are trying to butcher your kids and immigrants are flooding over the border. They're trying to find that nation in crisis. But I feel like it's probably going to, like, the fascist uprising. I unironically believe that is going to occur when climate change starts to ramp up a little bit. Like, once climate change, like, we're definitely going to see fascism really ramp up, because we'll be a nation in decline with all our natural resources depleting, our fucking water drying up. Yeah, there's definitely going to be way more fascist rhetoric. They're probably going to blame, I don't know, who? The fucking Russians because what? Nuclear Chernobyl or something? Like, I don't know. Like, they're going to find something, some boogeyman to point at in order to explain why that water's drying up when the explanation is simple. It's just global warming. We're pumping CO2 into our atmosphere, and it's causing the globe to heat up, and it's causing water to be unsustainable. Our water reserves to become unsustainable, and you're just grasping at straws at this point, trying to find a group to blame for this.
Did not help the German economy, and eventually Germany missed a war payment. The French wished to punish the Germans for this, whereas the British wanted leniency. The French government decided that if the Germans would not pay them, then they'd simply take the money instead. And in 1923, the French occupied the heavily industrialized region of the Ruhr. The reason for this was that
See, this further went played into the German thing. So the German victim complex. So in order to pay, because you had to be a dick, the like you had to pay reparations for the war, and so you didn't want to pay reparations. Well, fuck you, we're gonna come right in there and take it anyway. Like this further ties into the German victim complex, which led to the myth that Germany was a nation in decline, which unfortunately led to the rise of somebody like Hitler. Mind you, we're still, what year are we in? Oh, it's right. It's like literally right in the top corner. We're in 1923 right now.
could be paid in raw materials, many of which were produced there. Another way that German reparations could be paid was in foreign currencies, which were paid for by printing more paper marks. This created the hyperinflation that the Weimar Republic is famous for. For example, in January 1923, a loaf of bread cost 163 marks, and in early November...
163 marks. 163 marks. Was this... What? Oh, I think he said a specific year.
The hyperinflation that the Weimar Republic is famous for. For example, in January 1923, a loaf of bread cost
100... We're still in 1923. 1923. Germany... German mark to USD. Let's see. By November 1923, $1 was worth what? 1,000 million billion 4 trillion German marks. Wait, 4? So yeah, can you imagine paying like $160 for a loaf of fucking bread? Like, that's horrifying. Who the fuck wants to pay 140 over like 3 figures for a fucking loaf of bread? Like, I could be wrong. I don't know if we're talking about that many X's in terms of the price increase. Like, it could have been something more along the lines of a 2X or a 3X. Like, I don't know German mark to USD. Let me see if I can find... Let me just remove the 1923. So 1 German Deutsche Mark is equal to a little over a half of a US dollar. So basically that would be like paying... So that would be like paying, what is that? Over $300 for a loaf of bread? Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. Paying $300 for a loaf of bread? See, this is why we need to look at the shit that Hitler said, because if we end up ever experiencing something like that, we need to be able to identify when someone's actually genuinely taking our interests seriously, or if they're cynically invoking our interests or invoking our struggles in order to forward their own ideology of mass genocide. And this is why we need to have this conversation. This, like, yeah.
Marks. And in early November 1923, the same loaf of bread cost over 75 billion marks. In November 1923,
billion?
The revolution occurred in Munich, led by a certain Adolf Hitler.
Wait, was it million or billion?
The same loaf of bread cost over 75 billion marks. In November...
He said bill...
1923, a loaf of bread cost 163 marks, and in early November in 1923, the same loaf of bread cost over 75 billion marks. In November
75. Oh my god.
November 1923, another attempted revolution occurred in Munich, led by a certain Adolf Hitler and undertaken by the SA, the military arm of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the
Yeah, the national. So the Socialist, the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, like that's basically what they. So we, so all right. So let's rewind. I want you to take notice of this wording right here because this is very important. This leads to a lot of conflation between Nazis and socialists because people actually think that once again cynically invoking worker terminology means that you are a member of the working you are a fighter for the worker. Now, so in Germany, they would say Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, and we say National Socialist German Workers' Party. Now let's go back in time before we actually associate National Socialist with the genocide that it's well known for. German Workers' Party, right? National Socialist. So we have Democratic Socialists of America, which is a very left-wing political organization that seeks to bring down the capitalist structure and fight for democracy within the workplace, right? Now, when you see socialist in the name, it sounds pretty based. So people say National Socialist. All they see is that socialist part, so they think that this is they believe in the worker-owned means of production. They want to bring anybody who knows what socialism means remind you we're the Holocaust didn't happen yet. So as far as we're concerned, National Socialist is just another socialist party. Okay, so this is the context we're in right this second, just for the purpose of this. Now you add the excessive cynical invocation of German Workers' Party, or in their language, Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, and it sounds, once again, I don't know why. I think it's just because we're talking about Nazis, but so I'll just say it one more time. The Holocaust hasn't happened yet. We don't know that they're trying to kill millions of people. We just think they're another genuine political party. You see German Workers' Party or Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, and you see and what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? They're a party by and for the workers. They care about what? You're not for the workers, so you're going to speak out against the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei because you hate workers. So this is the word tricks that a lot of fascist regimes try to use. They try to invoke a lot of pro populist terminology in order to make you sympathize with their movement.
Nazi Party. This revolution failed when other nationalist politicians refused to help Hitler, and the army was called in. Hitler was wounded and arrested shortly afterwards. It was in prison that Hitler dictated his autobiography, Mein Kampf, which became the bedrock of Nazi ideology. All of this would make it seem like the Weimar Republic was
Oh, yes. And also, like, Hitler did not just write a book in prison. He also started his own crafting brand called Minecraft. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll that was bad.
but it managed to survive thanks to the intervention of two specific individuals. Gustav Stresemann, who helped to repair relations with France, and Charles Dawes, an American who would later become vice president, who helped to relieve some of Germany's economic problems. Germany's repayments were lowered, the French agreed to leave the route, and America agreed to loan Germany money.
I'm probably gonna piss off everybody who plays Minecraft. I'm so sorry. It was a bad joke, okay? It was a bad joke. All right. I'm not saying Minecraft players are Nazis, okay? Don't get mad at me. It just seemed like a funny joke.
Which created a strong economic link between the two countries. So then the Great Depression struck, tanking the US economy and dragging Germany's down.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. The Great Depression. The Great Depression happened, and that had a let's not forget that a lot of, so we have our treasury bonds, and those treasury bonds are government debt. So the government issues debt to people, in order to try to fund projects like roads or schools or whatever have you, what have you. And sometimes the government will actually sell that debt to the population, um, in order to to fill in that financial void, that financial gap that it creates. Another way in which governments do that is by raising taxes on the population. So between bonds and taxes, um, not just people but other governments too can invest into these assets. And when you do that, um, your country, depending on how much they have invested into your treasury bonds, your country is betting on or that country is betting on your country's success. So you cannot fuck up. So when the Great Depression happened in the 1929 Black what was it, Black Thursday, and then I think Black Tuesday was the following week. I could be wrong. I could be, but either way, that really, like, no, really, that fucked up Germany even more, further lending them down this industrial genocidal path of the Holocaust.
with it. Paul von Hindenburg, the president of Germany at the time, failed to get the Reichstag to agree on a response or anything. As a result, he had to invoke Article 48, which allowed the president to pass laws without the approval of the Reichstag in times of emergency. The biggest problem with Article 48.
So here we go. There you go. There's the enabling act of, is that what that was? Was that the enabling act?
The Reichstag to agree on a response or anything. As a result, he had to invoke Article 48, which allowed the president to pass laws without the approval.
Emergency regulations so that he could bypass the Reichstag. And this is where it all started. Now he no longer needs approval to kill massive amounts of people. Weimar, Germany, Article 48. Let's see when is this the famous enabling act? Weimar Constitution. Let me see. Let me see. When was the wait? Article 48. There it is. Versus Enabling Act. Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution governed the emergency powers of the president, while the Enabling Act was a law that gave the same powers to the chancellor, which I think was Hitler at the time. Article 48 allowed President Paul von Bismarck to pass laws without the Reichstag in a state of emergency, while the Enabling Act allowed Hitler to pass laws without the approval of Germany's parliament or president. So we're not quite there yet. Okay.
In times of emergency. The biggest problem with Article 48 was that there was no definition of an emergency, meaning it was open to abuse. The German people turned to different political parties to fix the problems. Some chose communism, whereas others placed their faith in the National Socialists. The Nazis believed that the German-speaking peoples should be united in a single state. They argued that communists and the Jews were the enemies of the German people and as such had to be removed. The Nazis were popular because they wished to disregard the Treaty of Versailles, which many Germans considered insulting. They also wished to limit any foreign involvement in German affairs by limiting the rights and numbers of foreigners in Germany. Another reason was people's anger with the continuing economic crises, which they were desperate to end. A series of elections led to a massive increase in the number of seats held.
I'm assuming this is Hitler's how much vote that the Nazi Party won. In 30, it was 18.3%. In 32, it was 37, and in 32, and just later that year, went down. Like, is that the?
Held by the Nazis, and by 1932.
Oh, this is how many seats were held by the Nazis. So they did lose. So from July to November, they lost a few seats. Okay.
Largest party by far.
But that didn't. But those seats being lost didn't do enough, as we all know.
Hindenburg's new made chancellor, which he refused several times because they were worried that Hitler would overthrow the government. Yet eventually, after the Nazis' continuous victories in elections, Hindenburg agreed to give him the job in January 1933. So Hitler immediately began working to overthrow the government. A fire started in the Reichstag by a young Dutch communist was used by Hitler to paint all communists as the enemies of Germany.
Okay, so yeah, so the Reichstag was burned down to the ground by, I guess, what was it?
Immediately began working to overthrow the government. A fire started in the Reichstag by a young Dutch communist was used by
a Dutch communist. So Marinus van der Lubbe. What an unfortunate name, Lube. So let's see if we can Marinus van der Lubbe. Here we are. Let's see. All right, so Marinus van der Lubbe was a Dutch communist who was tried, convicted, and executed by the government of Nazi Germany for setting fire to the Reichstag building, the National Parliament of Germany, on 27th of February 1933. During his trial, the prosecution argued that van der Lubbe had acted on behalf of a wider communist conspiracy, while left-wing anti-Nazis argued that the fire was a false flag attack arranged by the Nazis themselves. Most historians agreed that van der Lubbe acted alone, although this is occasionally disputed. Nearly 75 years after the event, the German government granted van der Lubbe a posthumous pardon. Oh, and he was a cutie too. He was a cutie. Cutie patootie. Well, he did a based thing, burning down. Like, I'm all for that. Can we do that to the printing press? Let's see. Yeah, he was, of course, later sentenced to death by the guillotine.
Hindenburg, under pressure from Hitler, issued the Reichstag fire decree, and the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, which suspended many civil liberties and made Hitler the de facto dictator of Germany.
And yes, I know that if he were still alive, he'd be old enough to be my great-great-grandfather. I'm well aware of that. Still a cutie patootie, don't care.
Passed mainly because the opposing communist parties were outlawed and that the vote was being held in a building filled with armed members of the SA. Over the next few months, Hitler established a secret police, the Gestapo, in order to help shore up his position. He outlawed trade unions as they were seen as breeding grounds for communists, and in July he abolished all other.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Remember a lot of the thing. Remember how I told you about how the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei used like the common worker slogans and terminology in order to gain support from the population. And one of those things was, of course, to name the Nazi Party the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, socialism. So they try to say, oh, so you're a socialist, right? So you support the Nazi Party? No. No, you're thinking capitalists. Socialists do not support Nazis. Basically, they wanted to get rid of trade unions, they got rid of, like, basically anybody who fought for workers' rights, including socialists. Like, yeah, to my knowledge, there was an actual socialist segment of the Nazi Party. Like, there was an actual genuine socialist Nazi thing, subdivision. Of course, they were Nazis, so they were incredibly racist and everything. Obviously, but they were killed. I don't know if it was Kristallnacht, the night of the long knives, or the day of the rope. I don't remember when, but they were purged from the Nazi Party because the Nazi Party is not a communist party. It's not a socialist party. Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei is very fucking misleading for a party that does not like socialism.
Political parties. In 1934, Hitler ordered the SS, another paramilitary group, and the Gestapo to eliminate his enemies, which included the head of the SA, Ernst Röhm, in an event known as the Night of the Long Knives. This was mainly because Hitler felt that the SA was the only force that could stop him. Shortly after this...
There we go. Night of the Long Knives. Let's hear that again.
Over the next few months, Hitler established a secret police, the Gestapo, in order to help shore up his position. He outlawed trade unions as they were seen as breeding grounds for communists, and in July he abolished all other political parties. In 1934, Hitler ordered the SS, another paramilitary group, and the Gestapo to eliminate his enemies, which included the head of the SA, Ernst Röhm, in an event known as the Night of the Long Knives. This was made...
There you go. So his political enemies were... So the Night of the Long Knives was the night in which his political opponents, socialists included, were basically mass executed by the state.
mainly because Hitler felt that the SA was the only force that could stop him. Shortly after this purge, President Hindenburg died, and Hitler assumed the role of president as well as that of the Chancellor. He declared himself the Führer of Germany and, using Article 48, create a single-party dictatorship. The lives of Germans changed massively under the new Nazi regime. The media was brought under the control of Joseph Goebbels, the Minister for Propaganda. Heinrich Himmler was placed in command of the Gestapo and the SS, who were ordered to crack down on anyone who disagreed with the Nazi government. Germans, for the most part, accepted having less freedoms in return for a higher standard of living, and because the Nazis had ended the chaos from the decade before they took power. The Nazi
Oh
government
yeah, that was another thing. Yeah, sure, Jews are being rounded up, and sent to the camps in trains, but at least the trains run well, right? Am I right? Like the trains are pretty accurate. They're finally on time. At least the buses ain't getting stuck in traffic because like millions of people are somehow magically missing. Like that's basically how like you were willing to, and this once again went back into what were we talking about earlier? Where is it? So I was wrong. It wasn't totalitarianism. The enforcement, the enforcement or advocacy of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. So that's Nazi Germany right there. You gave up your personal liberty. For others, it was just you didn't have anything to give up. You were the target of the state, and the state didn't want you, and you were executed. But for everybody else, the so-called Aryan race, like they accepted less freedoms. They gave up the freedom to speak up against their government. After all political parties except for the National Socialistic DAP was banned, and so you have that, and all because well, at least the trains ran well. It's kind of a common theme in these regimes. Fuck everybody else because at least I can get to work on time.
The German Labour Front, which was like a trade union except without the representation. The Nazis also established the Strike Through Joy program, which was designed to keep workers happy. It even helped to reduce class barriers by making vacations clubs.
The see, look at that. Kraft der Freude, strength through joy. Designed to make workers happier. See, this is the kind of shit. This is what the Nazi Party was pushing for on the surface to the public. This is what the strength through joy. This is the kind. This is, once again, I want to emphasize that this is very cynical of the Nazi Party. They do not believe in joy. They do not believe in strength. They believe in subservience and misery. But I want you to look at these. Let me get rid of the cheap holidays and cruises. Sounds nice. Sporting and recreational facilities. Ooh, that also sounds nice. Coach trips and travel around Germany. That sounds amazing. If any other party provided this kind of stuff, it would be a very popular party. Everybody likes to be able to get out of work for a day on a cheap holiday and go on a nice little cruise somewhere. Lots of people, especially in America, love their recreation and watching sports. And, I don't know about coach trips and travel around Germany, but this, like a lot of this does sound, but look at who put it forward. The Nazi Party. You see where I'm going at here? While fascists are busy on the inside engaging in a horrible genocide without the public knowledge, they're out here doing all these amazing things for the population. Because why? Do they actually want to do amazing things for the population? No. They want to solidify their power. So if they let the population that is favored in that society, in Nazi Germany it was the Aryans, in America it's cisgender straight white Christian males, you got to make sure you put all this kind of stuff forward so that people continue to vote for you. You can't engage in your genocide if people don't want to fucking vote for you. So you need to engage in a lot of this populist kind of policy. You really think the Nazis were just some crazy dipshits out there spewing genocidal hatred against Jews? You're fucking stupid. They were doing a lot more, and there was a reason why they were able to fucking stay in power. Not just because they were silencing their political opponents, it's because they were also doing other things other than trashing Jews, which the Republican Party to this day is doing the same fucking thing. They're not spending all their time criticizing trans people and LGBT people and women's reproductive rights. They're not just doing that. They're also talking about a lot of populist shit, like, oh, I'm gonna bring back your jobs. We gotta know where, like, at some point we need to know when we're going down a really dark path, because what we're seeing, based on this Kraft der Fried law that was passed by the German Labor Front. Wait, German Labor Front. Did I...
Rick Himmler was placed in command of the Gestapo and the SS, who were ordered to crack down on anyone who disagreed with the Nazi government. Germans, for the most part, accepted having less freedoms in return for a higher standard of living, and because the Nazis had ended the chaos from the decade before they took power. The Nazi government established the German Labor Front.
Yeah, so the Nazis established the GLF. Membership was mandatory.
The Nazis also established the Strength Through Joy program, which was designed
the Strength Through Joy program. So lots of populist rhetoric here. See, they would not have been able to maintain this level of control if they did not throw out a few populist policies here and there, even though it was all cynical ploy to maintain their disgusting power. In order to you got to remember, Germany was going through revolution after revolution after revolution. In order to not get overthrown, you have to make your people content with your rule. You got to make people content with your rule. It doesn't matter how evil you are. You have to. If you want people to continue voting for you, you have to. And it is for that reason why you will see the Nazi Party wasn't just shit-talking Jews, but they were also doing a lot of populist shit like this. You got to be careful. Just because someone's a populist does not mean that, or just because someone's doing a lot of populist policies does not mean you're in a good situation. You know, you got to think critically about these things.
It even helped to reduce class barriers by making vacations, clubs, cinemas, and other recreational activities open to people outside of the upper classes. Its most popular creation was the people's car, better known as the Volkswagen, which further bridged the...
Oh yeah, I will never, even if I get a car, I will never buy a Volkswagen Beetle, because the Volkswagen Beetle, or the German the people's car, was what is he going to say about it?
Recreational activities open to people outside of the upper classes.
Was it made by the Nazi Party, or?
The creation was the people's car, better known as the Volkswagen, which further bridged the class divide since it could be paid for in installments. In 1936, Hermann Goering was put in charge of the economy.
No.
It even helped to reduce the German Labor Front, which was like a trade union except without the representation. The Nazis also established the Strength Through Joy program, which was designed to keep workers happy. It even helped to reduce class barriers by making vacations, clubs, bridge the class divide since it could be paid for in
God damn it.
open to people outside of the upper classes. Its most popular creation was the people's car, better known as the Volkswagen, which further bridged the class
Okay,
divide since it could be paid for
so
in installments.
yeah.
In 1936, Hermann Goering was put in charge of the economy, beginning the 4-year plan, which was supposed to make Germany entirely self-sufficient within 4 years. Unemployment virtually disappeared, conscription was instated, and major public works were undertaken, most famously the Autobahn and the Berlin Olympic Games. The most important part of the 4-year plan was that it saw the beginning of German rearmament, which was a violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler's plan to unify the German people picked up towards the end of the 30s. In 1938, after some double dealing, threats, and a referendum, German troops marched into Austria, and Hitler announced its annexation. After negotiations with the British and the French, it was agreed that Germany would annex the ethnically German Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. Germany soon afterwards occupied half of it, which wasn't agreed. The Lithuanians then caved into Hitler's demands for this territory. The British and the French, afraid of a new major war in Europe, did nothing to deter Hitler from seizing more and more territory or rearming, which served only to embolden him. An agreement was then made between Germany and the Soviet Union to divide Poland, and on September 1st, 1939, the Germans invaded, and 2 weeks later the Soviets would...
And what year was this?
To embolden him. An agreement was then made between Germany and the Soviet Union to divide Poland, and on September 1st, 1939, the Germans invaded.
September what? 1939?
Or rearming, which served only to embolden him. An agreement was then made between Germany and the Soviet Union to divide Poland.
Oops. God damn it.
And on September 1st, 1939, the Germans invaded, and 2 weeks later, the Soviets would do the... In the Soviet Union to divide Poland, and on September 1st, 1939, the
September
Germans
1st.
invaded, and 2 weeks later, the Soviets would do the same, beginning the Second World War. France and Britain had an agreement with Poland and declared war on Germany, although Germany would quickly overrun France. In 1941, the Germans invaded the Soviet Union shortly before declaring war on the United States. Two very bad ideas. The Germans were initially...
I think that one was a more amusing war when the Nazis tried to invade Russia. This is basically I guess when the Germans tried to invade Russia, the Nazis all fucking froze to death. Maybe if they had a few extra coats. I mean, you know, don't go to war in a frozen wasteland in just a camo outfit. If all you're wearing is camo, and you're going into a place where they regularly see like negative sub-zero temperatures, Sorry, Nazi scum. I don't think that's gonna work for you.
In the United States began bombing campaigns against German cities, most notably Cologne, Hamburg, and of course Dresden. These attacks were designed to destroy German factories and infrastructure, as well as frighten the Germans into submission. The German economy did change drastically at the beginning of the war.
So basically, as we see throughout this whole video, from the depression and post World War, like into like the 19 teens and the mid 1920s. What the fuck? All right, where are we? 7:38. What the fuck was that? Oh, they were little dolls. Okay. Um, Basically, all this populist shit that the Nazi Party was doing, just because the point I want to make about that is just because a politician is saying a lot of really based populist shit does not mean that that person in itself is actually based. In fact, they could be cynically invoking that rhetoric in order to get you on their side. That is essentially what Hitler did. He said a lot of things about the economy and about the nation in decline and everything. And if it weren't for the collaboration of President Hindenburg, um, and of course him dying, uh, in the end, making Hitler both president and chancellor of Germany. Um, like you got to know when you got to know these things, guys. Not just do your research, please.
Germany had already been producing arms for many years. One major difference between Germany and the Allies was that Germany was very reluctant to have women working in the factories, which ultimately lowered the number of available workers and frontline soldiers. In the conquered territories, the Nazis implemented a policy of forced labour. In Poland, many women were forced to work farmlands to produce food, whilst men worked in factories. Many Jewish people, alongside anyone else considered undesirable, were used for slave labour to produce weapons, some of which they sabotaged. Throughout Europe, the Jewish populations were rounded up and placed into concentration camps. The original purpose of these camps was not extermination but forced labour, although they all had horrendous mortality rates. Before and throughout the war, the Nazis had attempted to decide on what they would do with the Jewish population of Europe. At first, the Nazis wished to deport them, and in fact some were sent to Palestine. It wasn't until 1942 that the camps began to explicitly exterminate.
Wait. Hold on.
And in fact, some were sent to Palestine. It wasn't until 1940. Well, the Nazis had attempted to decide on what they would do with the Jewish population of Europe. At first, the Nazis wished to deport them, and in fact, some were sent to Palestine. It wasn't until 1942 that the camps began to explicitly exterminate prisoners, or that specialized extermination camps were opened.
So some of the Jews that they deported from Europe were sent to Palestine, and so that's how we ended up with like the Israel-Palestine conflict. God damn it, Hitler! Can you just like fuck off? Like, oh wait, he already did. He shot himself. Probably the only based thing he actually did that wasn't, like, you killed yourself, dude. That's based. If I were like if I were alive during your time, I'd want to kill Hitler too. So good job, Hitler, for killing Hitler. Thank you. The world will thank you for that.
Million people were killed between them. Throughout the Holocaust, it is believed that roughly 5.5 million Jews were killed alongside roughly the same amount of Poles and Soviet prisoners. Gypsies, those with mental and physical disabilities, as well as homosexuals, were also exterminated alongside them. Having failed to conquer the Soviet...
Why is it that everybody who wants to talk about the conflict or about the LGBT victims of the Holocaust, it's always the homosexual? Like, come on, can we like not use that? Like, it was trans people. In fact, trans people were some of the first victims because of like the burning down of like the book burnings associated with like the science that we had discovered at that time about like transgender healthcare and everything. And gay men and lesbian women and bisexual people, yes, were like, it wasn't the homosexuals. Not everybody who is in the LGBT community is gay. Like, I shouldn't have to say that, but like, can we just like stop saying it like that?
Soviet Union, the tide of the war changed against the Nazis, and the Soviets managed to force them all the way back into Germany, liberating many of the concentration camps on the way. At the same time, the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, amongst others, invaded Western Europe, and together they managed to push the Nazis back into Germany as well. Most of the German high command, including Hitler, committed suicide in April 1945, and Germany surrendered in May.
Based by Hitler. Good on Hit. I'm proud of Hitler for killing Hitler for everybody. Hitler needed to do. Now, if only Hitler did that sooner, I think he'd be a major hero. He would have prevented a major. At the end of the day, the only person who could have prevented the Holocaust was Hitler. If only he did it just a few years sooner, lots of lives could have been saved.
Ending the Third Reich and the Nazi regime. Germany was occupied, and the surviving Nazi leaders were put on trial at Nuremberg, where many were sentenced to death.
See, all right, so now I wanna see. I don't know if I'll have it like maybe English dub Hitler speech. Because now, like, warning, this is going to be completely. Um. Oh, I hope they're not. And many are hearing worse. Okay. So. I'm trying to find. Like I said, I'll do it if I can find it, but if I can't find it, then I'm not going to do it. But I'm that's not going to stop me from trying, because I really do think we need to be able to actually hear an actual fascist, and understand the way he talks, the rhetoric they use, and because I feel like if you know the fascist you're listening to, like for example, it's Hitler you're listening to, and you hear all the shit that he's saying, it's gonna make you think, oh, so they weren't just a bunch of radical crazies that came in. Like they actually had like a platform that fooled a lot of people into thinking that, like, yeah, yeah, fascists aren't just. Think about it. If you came out here and said a bunch of crazy shit like, oh, the Jews are controlling the banks and trans people, like, like trans people are going to burn your house down or something, like a lot of people are just going to look at you and be like, yeah, 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 whatever. Yeah, go back. Go away. Bye. But if you add a lot of stuff that a lot of people would agree with you on, a lot of people, to the detriment of society, are willing to overlook, unfortunately, as we see in America today, a lot of the more fascist right wing shit that person is saying. For example, people are willing to vote for Trump on his economic policies, and they just don't like the fact that he's so transphobic and blah 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 yada yada yada. Well, a lot of Germans probably voted for Hitler because he was very very economically populist, despite the fact that they hated the fact that he was incredibly xenophobic and hateful against anybody who wasn't, the like that, like the predominant expectation of fucking Germany, of German citizens. Like, um, okay. So why are we anti-Semites? Oh, oh, we might have to go out for this one because this one was interrupted 58 times to cheering. So I want to see what the German citizens were cheering at the time. So let's see. Back to scene. Why are we anti-Semites in English 1920?
Why are we anti-Semites? Hofbräuhaus Festsaal, Munich, August 13th, 1920. My dear fellow Germans, we are already used to being called monsters. Here we go.
Okay. Now I want you to. All right. So this does sound like This does sound like a Hitler speech. Okay. So we're here. So I want you guys to listen, and we're gonna listen to what he has to say. We're not gonna go through this whole thing. It's fucking 47 minutes, and this segment itself is already like the largest segment of the fucking show. So we're not gonna go through this whole thing, but I'm gonna get through at least like maybe 5-10 minutes of this, just to give you a general idea of how he sounded. And remember, this speech was interrupted 58 times to cheers, allegedly. Mind you, this is Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But this speech, allegedly, if Wikipedia is right, was interrupted 58 times to cheering by normal, normie, shithead, fucking racist German citizens, you know, just like the normie, shithead American citizens we have here. So let's hear. It's probably going to be something along the lines of, if I had to guess, after all fascists are like, all like, you know, they call us anti-Semitism because they call us transphobic because we don't want men in girls' locker rooms. They're probably going to be some very similar rhetoric to this, and that is the whole purpose of this, is to try to get you to understand that fascists are very deceitful, and they are very skilled. They are not stupid. They are not deranged lunatics that are just spewing, throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. They know what they're doing, and they're calculated.
It's particularly monstrous that we are in the vanguard on the question that most unnerves certain gentlemen in Germany today, namely the question of opposition to the Jews. Our people understand so much, but this one thing we do not want to understand, and above all, because the worker asks, what does the Jewish question have to do with the workers at all? Indeed,
and that is a good question. What the fuck does the Jewish question? Like, why should I be JQing because, you know, me being paid like two pennies an hour, because, you know, and when, rent prices are through the roof at fucking $13 an hour, and I have to work like an 80-hour work week in order to save up enough pennies to fucking pay my rent. Like, you know, like, obviously I'm saying pennies because back in the time, you know, like, a loaf of bread was not fucking $3. But anyway, like, why should I care about the fact that what do Jews have to be with bread costing $3? Like, why should I give a fuck?
The majority of our people today still have no idea what the actual situation is with regard to this question. The vast majority perhaps only deals with this question emotionally and immediately judges. Well, I have seen good and bad people.
You see, we have that right now. You hear that? I want you to hear that one more time. One more time.
People today still have no idea what the actual situation is with regard to this question. The vast majority perhaps only deals with this question emotionally.
The vast majority perhaps only deal with this question emotionally.
And immediately judges.
This is the victim mentality that we see a lot of race realists being like, you know, we have to ask questions about, like, whether or not black people are genetically inferior or something because, like, I don't know, like... But most people don't really like to deal with that question because otherwise they'll be called a racist, and it's like, you know, like, and they immediately rush to judge you for daring to ask questions. Like, this is word for word. Remember, we're listening to a Hitler speech, guys. This is Hitler. This is Hitler talking. We're right here. Let's hear some more, shall we?
Well, I have seen good and bad people among them, just as among ourselves.
I've seen good and bad people among them. Hitler's starting to sound like a enlightened centrist. There's some fine people on both sides. Some fine people on both sides, you know. There's some fine racists chanting Jews will not replace us, and there's some fine social justice warrior degenerate Marxists over here that we're gonna later gas.
Few have learned to judge from objective observation. This is where I will draw a connection with the word work. What does work actually mean? Work.
Oh, here we go with the populist rhetoric, guys. Work. I feel like I have to keep reminding you. Every 5 minutes, I'm going to keep reminding you, guys, this is a Hitler speech we're listening to. I'm gonna keep reminding you, just so that you don't fall victim, because we're listening to this for critique. I am not platforming him so he can convince you into spewing his bullshit. So every few minutes, I'm going to remind you that we're listening to a Hitler speech, because it looks like I might fucking have to.
Is an activity that one does not perform for one's own sake, but for the benefit of one's fellow men. If anything distinguishes man from animal, it is precisely his work, which is not only guided by instinct, etc., but is based on the pure recognition of a certain necessity.
Now, what's objectionable about that? But then, at the end of the day, once again, what does that have to do with Jews? What does my wage being shitty have to do with trans people being allowed to take a piss? Let's listen to some more, shall we?
Hardly any revolution has had such a profound effect on this earth as this slow one, which has gradually turned the lazy man of primeval times into the man of work. We can assume here that this activity has followed three great stages. First of all, the purely instinctive drive for self-preservation. We find it not only in man, but also in animals. And
there you go. The need to try to bring oneself out of poverty. You hear this a lot on the current right wing. You got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. A lot of the difference in rhetoric that Hitler's using versus a lot of the politicians of today is due to time. Remember, you go back into the 1800s, there's probably a little bit, like, English was a lot more drawn out in terms of the language. Like, you listen to someone speaking English from the 1800s and you're not going to recognize what the fuck they're saying, because it's some, like, we're not talking Old English, because we're talking medieval era, but there are time differences in rhetoric. So far, everything Hitler says, other than the fucking JQing shit in here, is very populist, very pro-worker, and it's easy to understand why an entire population could be deceived by a dipshit like this. Let's continue.
And this instinctive...
Once again, like I said, every few minutes, guys, this is a Hitler speech we're listening to.
Drive for self-preservation later developed into another form of work, namely work for purely selfish reasons. This second stage of work...
And this is where we have like the Jewish question shit coming in, where Jews control all the banks. First of all, back in that time, whether or not Jews disproportionately controlled the bank, this is another thing that a lot of fascists try to do. They try to take a fact, whether or not that was a fact, I don't know. Whether or not hang on. Did Jews disproportionally... So I don't know if it's true, but we're gonna find that out. Not control. I really don't want to use fucking JQ language. Work. We'll say work in the financial industry in Weimar, Germany. God damn it. Owned up to 20% of wealth in so so I'm not seeing any statistics that say that it's true. But let's follow that rhetoric for a minute. Like, let's go ahead and answer the Jewish question once and for all. If it's true that Jews disproportionately control, why is that? Why would that be? Well, usury laws, it turns out that people who are non-Christian, so this includes everybody, Jews, Muslims, atheists, anybody who does not subscribe to Christian ideology, usury laws could make it so that you are not allowed to collect money on interest or on loans. So you had to loan out your money completely free of charge. Whatever you loaned, that's what you got back. You can't charge a fee, you can't charge interest, none of that. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I think due to a lot of the persecution in Weimar Germany and a lot of the anti-Semitism going along, the banking industry, I think I heard something about how that was like the only place that they could really get into, because one, they're not Christian, so they're not subject to usury laws, and two, well, there's a lot of restrictions on their civil liberties, and lots of employers don't want to work with them because of systemic discrimination being perpetuated by the Nazi Party. So it could lead to a situation in which one group is disproportionately represented in a given industry. And just like we discussed with the 1350 statistic, that is not an inherent thing to that demographic, because of the fact that if you just change the policies and you just allow people to be treated like equal to everybody else, a fair and equitable, you know, country, whatever, like, it takes away any, the systemic issues that they might face, where they can only find this line of work. Like, it's for the same reason, like, women are disproportionately represented in fucking childcare. You know what I mean? Because, like, the history of, like, there's so many explanations that are just not fucking genetic and are not inherent to a group of people, and are really just social constructs inflicted among, against certain groups of a population by a bigoted fucking demographic of individuals. Let's continue. Remember, Hitler speech here.
Was also gradually overcome, and the third came work out of a sense of moral duty, which the individual does not do only because he is compelled to do it. Today, we can see it everywhere, the work which millions of people do without being driven to it constantly, which by...
See, there you go. Hitler right here is basically saying, workers of Germany, I hear you, I see you. Now, obviously, the fine print is just not the Jews, just not the trans people, just not the blacks, Obviously, he's referring specifically to his narrow mind of what the perfect German actually is. But the populist rhetoric is there. The populist rhetoric is there, people.
Binds thousands of intellectuals to their study day after day through the night, without perhaps being materially compelled to do this work, which makes hundreds of thousands of German workers wander into their home gardens after the end of the workday. And we can see that today millions of people cannot live at all without some kind of occupation. And
millions of people cannot live at all without some kind... He is speaking to the anxiety of the current population of... Not current German population, where... You know what I mean. The German population at the time, when they were going through the nation in decline bullshit. This is him trying to speak to that anxiety to get people on his side. And it fucking worked.
When I said earlier that this may well be a slow, but perhaps the greatest revolution that mankind has undergone so far, then one must assume that this revolution too must have had a certain cause. And
this is so disgusting. I can't even listen to it. Because a lot of this is very... But it's like... the person making the speech and the way he's trying to tie it to the fucking JQ and other shit is just so cynical and sickening.
Cause is again the greatest goddess on this earth, the one who is able to drive man to the extreme, the goddess of hardship. We can trace this hardship on this earth back to ancient times, especially in the northern part of the world, in those enormous ice deserts, in those places which offered only the most meager existence. Here man was forced for the first time to fight for his existence in practice. What the smiling South offered him in abundance without work, he had to win through his labor in the North, and so perhaps the first groundbreaking invention was born here. In these cold stretches, man was forced to seek a substitute for the only gift of heaven that makes life possible, the sun, and the man who first artificially produced the spark, later appeared to mankind as a god, Prometheus, the firebringer. The North forced people to further activity, making clothing, building their own dwellings, caves, and later houses. In short, it practically gave birth to the...
And this is the national identity shit. This is what a lot of fascist regimes try to employ for their, as like a state ideology or something. Fascism rejects the view that violence is inherently negative or pointless, but rather views imperialism, political violence, and war as a means to national rejuvenation. Fascists often advocate for the establishment of a totalitarian one-party state, sometimes authoritarian, a market economy in which the state plays a strong directive role through economic interventionist policies with the principal goal of achieving autarky, national economic self-sufficiency. Fascism is extreme authoritarian, and nationalism often manifests its belief in racial purity or a master race, usually blended with some variant of racism or discrimination against the demonized other, such as Jews, gay people, transgender people, ethnic minorities, immigrants, and there you go. Like, like, you gotta have that ideology in there. And I feel like he's building that up with He said
Principle of work
Prometheus?
to further activity, making clothing, building their own dwellings, caves, and later houses. In short, it practically gave birth to the principle of work. Without it, existence, make it spark, later appeared to mankind as a god. Prometheus, the fire breather.
Prometheus.
The North forced people to further activity, making clothing, building their own dwellings, caves, and later houses. In short, it practically gave birth to the principle of work. Without it, existence up there would have been impossible. Even if it was still modest, it was already an activity that had to be planned in advance, which the individual knew that if he failed to carry out, he would hopelessly starve to death in the following hard winter. And at the same time,
Babe, be very careful. I am live. I know.
Not stupid.
I love you.
a second development took place. The enormous hardship and the terrible privation acted as a means of racial purification. What was weak and sickly could not survive.
Huh?
So I'd say to you.
What? No, babe. Okay. You're lucky the camera's pointed this way.
Get the fuck out.
Anyway, so now he's of course going into the racial purity rhetoric, which literally, word for word, right fucking here. Literally right fucking here. Racial purity.
This terrible period, but sank prematurely into the grave, leaving a race of giants in strength and health. And a further characteristic was born in this race, where men are externally muzzled, where their sphere of action is externally limited.
And if you think, and hang on, guys, if you think that what he's spewing is all that crazy, you know, giants and racial purity, just remember we also have a lot of people who believe equally insane things, like a half naked hippie died being nailed to a pile of sticks. Like, you know, to save humanity from sin.
It begins to develop.
What, babe?
I was gonna say Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny.
Oh yeah, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Although chances are, if you believe that, you're fucking 5. So there's at least that. Most people don't. But you know, people.
This many years.
But you never know. Maybe somewhere down the line, some dumbass, when their mommy finally revealed that Santa Claus was real or was fake, basically told them, "You fucking blasphemer! How dare you say that Santa Claus is not real? Do you not see the presents that come under the tree every year? How fucking dare you? Like, you know, Santa Claus is real, and if you don't believe in him, well, I just can't help you, you know? I am forming the first church of Santa Claus." Yeah, guys, this is a fucking Hitler speech, okay? You can see, if it weren't for the xenophobia, the racial purity rhetoric, as explicit as that is, we're not that far off, guys. We're already spewing the white replacement theory, the great replacement theory here, and there's still people that believe that there should be some degree of genetic separation between white people and black people. Some people literally debating miscegenation. Like, no, if you need to be convinced why trans people should be allowed to exist, or why black and white people should be allowed to marry each other, or, you know, that a 10-year-old should not be forced to carry their rapist baby to term, like, if I need to explain that to you, then I can't help you, and this just isn't the channel for you. We don't debate human rights on this channel. We discuss them, and we rip into people who think that shit is, you know, to be debated. We make fun of you. Like, we don't debate with you. We think you're bad faith and you're scum of the earth. Like, if you support fascism like this, like, you can't be helped. Sorry.
Externally limited, inwardly unlimited. The more man must depend on himself due to external forces, the deeper his inner life becomes, and the more he turns inward. These 3 achievements, the recognized principle of work as a duty, a necessity, not only for the individual and out of egoism, but for the existence of the whole clan, even if that was often only a very small group of people. Secondly, the necessity of physical health and thus mental health. And thirdly, the deep inner spiritual life. These gave the Nordic races the ability to expand over the rest of the world and form states. Even if this power could not be expressed in the far north, it became capable of taking effect at the moment when the ice shackles fell away and man moved down to the south into a favorable, happy sign into tempest and very bread. Exception. Even among us today, Jerusalem was the capital of a Jewish nation-state. First of all, in those days the gulf between the Jews of the tribe of Judah and Caleb and the northern Israelite tribes was still practically unbridged, and it was only David who succeeded in bridging this gulf and gradually creating a union through the unified cult of the God Yahweh. We know precisely that this cult chose Jerusalem as its sole seat of power only at a very late stage, and that only from that moment on did the Jewish people receive a headquarters, exactly like they have today in, for example, Berlin or New York or Warsaw, etc. It was a city in which, thanks to their other abilities and characteristics, they gradually gained the upper hand, partly by force of arms and partly by force of trumpets. Even then, the Jew lived primarily as a parasite on the body of other peoples, and it had...
See, there you go. The Jew lived as the, what did he say? Parasite?
In, for example, Berlin or New York or Warsaw, etc. It was a city in which, thanks to their other abilities and characteristics, they gradually gained the upper hand, partly by force of arms and partly by force of trumpets. Even then, the Jew lived primarily as a parasite on the body of other peoples, and it...
Even then, the Jew lived primarily as a parasite on the body of other peoples, I think he said. And we have something like that today with our current politician, our current candidate Donald J. Trump, trying to say that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation. They're like a parasite, you know. And we even see that all the time with single black mothers on fucking welfare because they can't fucking afford to feed their goddamn kid. Oh, the welfare queens are parasites and they're mooching off of, like, we hear this rhetoric today, guys. How can you listen to this Hitler speech and walk away and not walk away listening to the shit we're hearing today, wanting to fucking throw up? You really think Hitler was some out of the ordinary fucking super extreme politician? No. The shit that he did, or well, actually I should say rhetorically, no. Because obviously the shit that he did afterwards, like during the Holocaust, when he finally you know, fucking consolidated his power, that was obviously industrialized genocide, like whatever. But in terms of rhetoric, guys, rhetoric, he was not that much different than what we have today. Very populist, very xenophobic, obviously. We have plenty of that. And believing some bullshit ideology about Prometheus and giants and stuff. And guys, don't be fooled by fascistic rhetoric like this. This is fucking crazy. How many, like, I had to keep reminding you that we're listening to a Hitler speech. Like, this is Hitler we're listening to, spewing all this populist rhetoric. With the xenophobia, but still the populist pro-worker rhetoric. We need to be on the lookout for this kind of stuff. And we already see the signs. The signs are right fucking there. The signs are right there. Trump is our Hitler right now. And we're not doing shit about it. Like, that's just sad. Rhetorically, Hitler was not that extreme. Emphasis on rhetorically. Compared to what we have now. And you just want to dismiss people calling Trump a fascist because, oh, he's not rounding up Jews or something? You have to be stupid to believe that. Once again, this speech was interrupted 58 times, I think they said. Yeah, like, right? 58 times? I can't find the article. But 58 times with applause. He was not, rhetorically speaking, emphasis, rhetorically, the extremist we all brush him off as. He, like, compared to what we view him as, like, just this, like, he was literally going to the rallies and saying, I'm gonna I'm gonna round up all the, and we're gonna kill them all. You really think he actually literally talked about a fucking Holocaust? No. He didn't run on the Holocaust, guys. He ran on populist / xenophobic rhetoric like what we're currently dealing with in the United States. And I had to literally play a fucking Hitler speech in English just so you could understand that. I had to subject myself to listening to fucking Hitler just so that I can demonstrate to you, ideologically, rhetorically, we're not that far off from our own little Nazi Germany. Well, that's it for this segment and probably for the show. I think I'm going to end it right here. I want to go outside and smoke, and I think we got ourselves a nice show today. So, if you found this segment to be educational, please feel free to like. Please, subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitch. Do check out my Patreon. Do follow me on socials. We stream trying to stream 5 days a week on this channel. I don't always honor my own schedule, but I do my best. And thank you for watching my show. And I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.